Okay, we should be live.
Thank you, Andrew. At this time, I'd like to reconvene into open session, and if we could let the record show that it's 4:58 p.m. on the 24th of June. I'd like to report that there was no action taken during closed session. At this time, if I could ask Spencer, if you'd like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Spencer. At this point, we are on number 5 of the agenda, the comment section, and I would like to ask if there are comments or announcements by the board, and I will call you out by name. Bill?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Art?
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you, John, for your service. We really enjoyed it, and we are all going to miss you.
Thank you, Art. Sandra?
I would like to reiterate Art's statements. I appreciate everything you've done, John, and best of luck in your new endeavors. I'm jealous.
Thank you, Sandra. And then lastly, the only thing I'd like to comment on is I have been involved in the reopening video meetings, conference calls, and I just really do enjoy it. We're seeing the progress. There's lots of excellent people providing lots of excellent input. I mean, you can tell that we're going to get there, and it's all going to be really terrific. And so, anyway, they've been very good, so I'm very, very pleased. I'd just like to comment on that for those out there in the public who may want to participate. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are comments or announcements by the administration. Spencer?
And so make sure I don't forget, I want to start off by first thanking John Bohannon for the great 2 years that we have had with him here in our district. He has been as a peer.
I think you just gave him a moment of silence there, Spencer. You might want to.
Sorry. Yes, I just told him that I gave him words of wisdom, and he didn't want to hear them. I just want to say, John has been a great assistant superintendent to work with, and he has also not only been a great support to the district, but also to our students and our staff. And through this time, I didn't know John very well when he first took the job, and now we've become good friends. And I'd like to thank him for all of his services and for his friendship. And I'll be working with him closely in Durham as a fellow superintendent and as a friend. Additionally, I'd like to thank Andrew and his crew for all their work in getting us updating and revitalizing our website. We have a new website, and so if you haven't seen it, please go and see it. We also have commend our staff and our principals and their support staffs in putting together our 2 middle school graduation drive-in movie theater nights that we had last week, Friday and Saturday night, and they were well attended by family. I think it went over really well. The only bad thing that happened is that there was a thunderstorm right in the middle of the first night, which I think was Ishii Hills. But most people stayed, and we endured, and it was really good. And also like to thank the city for working with us to making that happen. Bill, you and Bill Agrone and his team worked with us for the venue and some of the other things and the logistics with the city, and it was really successful. So thank you, Oroville City, for helping us with that. And then my last comment has to do with reopening and the reopening schools committee that our board president was speaking to. And if you are a parent and you would like to be part of that committee, please just email me. I'm on the website, and I'd be more than happy to invite you. And we are moving forward. And here's something I haven't shared.
We lost you again, Spencer.
I guess he's never going to share it.
That we're going to have offering for the new school year. But I will take this time to say that we are working and doing everything we can to offer multiple programs, including getting our kids back into school. And I will be giving more insight and more details next week. And then also we'll be sending out another survey to families asking for more specific detail on where they would like to see their kids next year and which program, because we're going to have multiple options for them. So thank you, President. That's all I have.
Thank you. John?
All the nice words are making it difficult to leave tonight, but I appreciate everything everybody said. I want to start my report by talking a little bit about addressing an issue that came up at the last board meeting as it relates to our contract with the Butte County Office of Education for support for our MTSS and PBIS work. There was some concern shared about lack of support for this team. I sent the board some data from surveys that were done after all of our trainings with our BCOE team for this school year. And all their surveys were done on a scale of 1 to 5. So 4 or 5 being the best rankings. And for all of the sessions that they hosted for us or that they presented or facilitated for us, all of them had at least 78% of a 4 or a 5. And most of them had over a 90% 4 or 5 scores from our teachers that attended, and several actually had 100% 4 or 5s. So this data, in concert with my conversations with teachers at grade level meetings and on sites, is where I was sharing with the board last time why we felt it was a positive move to continue this work with BCOE and continue this contract. I can't speak for the data that the OETA bargaining team members were concerned about. I did also talk to BCOE because I wanted to make sure I shared those concerns with them. And they if you recall, there was a statement made that there were concerns about the trainings from BCOE for the past 4 or 5 years. Well, the reality is this team that we had this year in 1920, this is the first year this team of people has provided the staff development from BCOE in this group. So what happened before this year, I can't speak to, nor can the people that are providing the services for us now. So I just want to make sure the board was aware of how we as a district management team use our data to drive the decisions that we ask the board to approve. The other thing I'd like to say is I've spent, and I see Janet's on here now, so that's good. I spent the last couple of weeks kind of creating a document for Janet regarding all the different things we've done over the last couple of years since Spencer and I have been in the district. And what I realized as I was going through this document is, boy, we've done a lot in the last 2 years, despite the fire and the school closure this year. And I just think that that's a testament to the administrators and staff and teachers in Oroville that really wanted to make some moves and move forward on a lot of different venues. And we were able to accomplish a lot by working collaboratively. And I really hope that those collaborative conversations and movements continue between Janet and the grade levels and the principals as we move forward. I think the district has come a long way, and under your leadership with Dr. Holtham can continue to progress in a positive manner. So I'd just like to finish by thanking the board and Dr. Holtham for supporting all of my work the last 2 years and actually supporting me in my endeavor to return to my hometown to be a superintendent. And I also want to thank Andrew. We had some good tussles in private over between ed services and business like you're supposed to, but the entire team in Orville has been wonderful to work with. So I just want to make sure I thank everybody.
John, thank you ever so much. And I just ditto everything that all the rest of the board has said about you. So good luck. And if we can help, let us know. Kimberly, Tyler.
Sorry, I couldn't get it unmuted. I want to also thank John for everything that he has done. It's been great to work with him. He's brought an expertise to our district and a leadership that I think has benefited all of the students in our district. I also want to let the board know that it is really important what we're doing in our reopening to meet the needs of all of our students. And I appreciate that the leadership is inviting and listening to feedback from all of the stakeholders. And although that we know that it's going to be a very challenging thing moving forward with this, I'm confident that our leadership is going to be able to come up with the very best plan for our students.
Thank you, Kimberly. Andrew?
Yeah, I have a few comments for this evening. I'll get into the budget during the budget presentation, so I won't take your time up here with it. First off, I just wanted to tell John that I really appreciated working with him. I feel like you're going to bring a lot to Durham, and I look forward to working with you in the future. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad. I'm not glad. I'm sad that it's over, but I'm glad for you that you're on to something bigger and where you want to be. Couple other things I wanted to touch on. Let's see if I get this to go. So this is the central gym. And let's see if I can get this thing to move. But after our new on-bill financing LED lighting retrofits, this is the central gym. So the yellow lights are gone. The new white lights, LED lights are in place, and they are in place outdoors all around the district. This is a project that, yet another project that Jim Galloway has spearheaded for the district. His contributions to our district are immeasurable, but I wanted to share this one because I think this picture of the central gym before and after, I think for those of you who've been there will really notice. The other thing, and Spencer already alluded to it, we have updated the look of our website. And this is for all of the different school sites. They have new, more modern look. And they also have a little tagline like Sierra del Oro Preschool, preparing for success. So I worked with our website team, and through their guidance and work, we were able to get the vendor a good idea of what we wanted. And I feel like our website is very modern and very easy to use. So I'm excited about the new website as well. It's nice to have something that's new and fresh looking. And it didn't cost us anything to upgrade it because it's our current vendor and they want to keep us as a client. So they went ahead and updated redesigned our websites for us. So I was very pleased with it. And that's all I have.
Can I just say really quickly, both of my children have matriculated from Central Middle School, and lo these 5 years, I swear, I thought the floor was yellow. I did not know it was white.
And I also think that my jump shot will improve now that I can actually see.
I don't know if I'd count on that, but
That seems like it's a reach, but you know what? We will be looking forward to that next year in the 2021 school year. Andrew, thank you. Thanks for the update on the website. I wasn't even aware it was happening. It looks brilliant, so I really appreciate that. At this point, I'd like to move on to Section 5C, comments by the public. At this time, the board will extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on matters which are school-related. Email your comments or questions to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments and questions will be read into the record and/or addressed during the meeting. However, emails received without a sender's name will not be shared during the meeting. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take action on any item that is not on the posted agenda. And I'll ask Andrew and Spencer, do we have any comments in the backpack@ocesd.net email?
No, we do not.
I do not see any. No, I do not.
Okay, and if just let me know if we do receive some comments, because we are all getting used to this new process. I'd like to move to Section 6 on the agenda, which is our public hearing session. It's the proposed publication of the budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. I believe, am I going to turn that over to Andrew or to Spencer?
Yeah, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Oh, I thought Spencer was going to present on it. No, I'll get it. Hold on.
He's working on his jump shot.
Yeah. Can you all see my very stylish presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's the best part of this budget. So this is the adoption of the original budget and estimated actuals. And estimated actuals, for a little bit of background, is the basis for the beginning fund balance for the original budget. In times past, estimated actuals have been critical or have been, just sort of a side note, not too super critical. This year, with the cuts that were proposed to education in the May revision, the estimated actuals were critical. I completely worked over the entire estimated actual 1920 budget to see where I estimate our ending fund balance will end up. So we have as accurate numbers as possible. But again, the estimated actuals aren't actually an operational budget because it's not a plan like a budget. It's just my estimate of where I think we're going to end. And it's also what the auditors use to see how close I get. The 2021 original budget is your first version of the budget for the fiscal year 2021. Original budgets they're developed in May and June, mostly in May, and are mainly based on assumptions that are subject to change. They also tend to be conservative because there's a lot of uncertainty in the budget. With this budget, we use the May revision budget that the governor put out, which is what we normally do for original budget. The May revision, unfortunately, was a devastating budget that Governor Newsom proposed for public schools. And I'll get into each of these a little bit. But the main two proposals in the May revised budget that are included in the budget I'm presenting tonight are a 10% proposed cut to LCFF funding, which is our main funding source, and a delay of cash payments to school districts, also known as, and we'll be discussing as, deferrals. This combination of cuts, as you see, as I wrote there, represent the single largest cut in a single year in California school history. So as you can imagine, a historic level cut is going to be devastating to school districts all up and down California. So first, for the LCFF cut, when they talk about a 10% cut, that's actually 10% between the budget the governor had proposed in January and the May revision. The actual cut compared to the 1920 budget and the 2021 budget is a 7.92% cut. So you might hear it called a 7% or an 8% or a 10%, but it's all the same cut. And it's all very, very devastating to schools. And if you look at my funding estimates, you can see I have the May revision funding estimate, then I have a no LCFF cuts funding estimate. So if there were no cuts that ever happened, if in Fantasyland the coronavirus never occurred, that's what it would look like. So you can see that in 2021, for example, the cut is $2.4 million. And then in 21-22, it's 2.9 million and 3.6 million in 22-23. So you can see that this stack of cuts is devastating for a school district because it's just so much cash, so much money. The other piece that the governor included in his budget are what I know as, and I wished I had never met them, and I wish I'd never had seen them again, deferrals. This was a cornerstone of the budget cuts we had back in 6, 7, 7, 8, because the cash was low, or the state was low on cash, so they needed to borrow money. And it's actually kind of it's sort of a trick. So what they do is they say, hey, I don't have enough money in my books, so I'm going to cut schools. And in our case, they're going to cut us by $3.75 million for 2021. But then they're going to give us that money after the school year is over. So the cuts proposed in the governor's May revise had the vast majority of the fourth quarter that were deferred into the next year. And that's your $3.75 million. While we're on deferrals, so I don't have to circle back to deferrals, with the legislature's budget that they passed, and with that budget, I'll be bringing at the next board meeting a 45-day budget revision and going over these topics again. They have also included an additional deferral, taking our scheduled apportionment for February, which is 20%. February is a 20% month. So it's one of our big heavy months. They're going to take February and move it into November. So you can see how this creates a real cash problem for a district. And the problem with running out of cash is you can't make payroll. And if you can't make payroll, you're out of business. So I'm going to be bringing back to you in July with the 45-day budget revision authorization for you to approve to do interfund borrowing, where we borrow money from our capital facilities funds and other funds as much as we can. I think it's 85% we can borrow, and move that to the general fund for the purposes of covering our monthly costs so we don't run out of cash. But even with that, we're probably still not going to have adequate cash to cover payroll in June. So what's going to happen is we're going to, and have already begun the process with the county of going out and looking for a TRAN. And a TRAN is a tax revenue anticipation note. So it's a short-term loan that we can get, and there will be fees and things associated with that. But that's the only way we're going to be able to make cash, or able to make payroll, is to borrow cash later in the year. Hopefully we'll be able to conserve cash as best we can, and that's going to be a focus, is conserving cash throughout the entire year, so we don't have to go out and get a TRAN. But with the level of deferrals that they're handing out, and the fact that they're not paying us February back until November, which is a long time, it's going to be really difficult for us not to have to borrow money. So here's a little chart that I see, and I saw this before back in the old days when it was deferrals, and now it's back. And you can see on the left that they took our June apportionment and they moved it to July. And then they're going to take our 22% of our April, move it to August, all of our May apportionment, move it to September, and all of our June apportionment and move it to July as well. The problem is, like this second June to July deferral, that's just the same borrowing from the original June to July. They just don't have enough money to cover. So imagine you have to go and get a payday loan because you don't have enough money to make your regular bills on time. So you go and you get a payday loan, so you get your paycheck 2 weeks early or whatever, a week early to make your bills. So at what point, if you have no extra money, at what point can you stop going and getting the payday loan? Well, you would have to have additional funds in order to do that. And you'd have to then use those funds to fill in the blank so you don't have to get the payday loan. And that's the problem with deferrals is they add these onto the budget and they'll last, these are probably going to last for, 5 or 6 years, unless they get some sort of federal stimulus from the federal government. The idea is if they get HEROES Act money enough, they will buy down the deferrals. So schools won't actually see HEROES Act money in the form of actual additional funds, or if they do, it'll be minimal. Most of it will be going to the state to pay off these deferrals, and the state can start giving us our cash on time. But they're doing short-term borrowing. They're borrowing money against schools to balance their budget. And that's the approach they're using for the upcoming budget. Whereas the governor's May revision actually had cuts, significant cuts, deep cuts. So what are some of the things that we can do to support our budget in 2021? For the 2021 year only, we have some money from the CARES Act called ESSER funds. And it stands for something, but we'll stick with ESSER. It's about $800,000 that came from the federal government as a one-time payment, specifically to help us through the coronavirus cash crisis, funding crisis that the coronavirus is causing. In addition, we have frozen a number of vacant positions to create savings. In those positions, I have not in the budget included returning them back or bringing them back on. And that's something we'll have to look at because some of those positions are pretty vital to our organization. So every time I talk about the budget, I like to talk about multi-year projections. Multi-year projections are basically what the budget is. It's the cornerstone, it's the key piece of the entire budget. The rest of it is exhibits to demonstrate the information that's in the multi-year projection or test things. The multi-year projection looks at 3 years. You all have 2021, 21-22, and 22-23, or years 1, 2, and 3 in the multi-year projection. If you have your packet or are looking at it, the multi-year projections we're talking about are the multi-year projection assumptions. The actual official multi-year projection that's in the state software, I don't really refer to it. I think the assumptions, the ones I've created are a little more user-friendly. So one of the main assumptions in our budgets, in our multi-year projections, are that we're going to have a decline in enrollment each year. Knowing that we're planning on having no additional funding from LCFF, meaning no additional COLA funding or anything. When you're a declining enrollment district, each year you get less and less money from the state for LCFF funding because it's all ADA driven. We've had about a 2% decline in enrollments over the last 10 to 12 years, with a few years like this last year that weren't a 2% decline. And we're hopeful that at some point this tables out and begins to climb back up. I know that Spencer and John and all of our staff have been working very hard to make sure we have a quality educational program for kids that draws people in, and we're doing our best to try to share that with people. But declining enrollment is a major part of the OCESD story right now, and a part that unfortunately is, you look at the long term as OCESD enrollment gets closer to 2,000 kids or less, you have to look at some big changes to the district. We've already had to close 2 schools in the district, one while I was here, 2 in recent memory. There's East Side we closed, and then Bird Street School. And, as the enrollment continues to decline, you have to continue to look at what's next. What's next for Oroville City Elementary? So the multi-year projection assumptions, I created 3 versions, and I'm going to reference 4 just to make it really complicated. The first version of the multi-year projection assumptions is the official version. This is the version that is on the state software multi-year projection, and it shows us having the full impact of the May revision cuts with no cuts in return. I didn't plug into this budget multi-year projection any additional cuts of expenditure cuts for us, trying to fight off the statewide cuts. So it shows us with a negative balance in year 2 and a negative balance in year 3 of the multi-year projection. The reason this is the official one, the cuts necessary, which I'll demonstrate in version 2, are so large that we didn't have like a list, here are the things we're going to do to make these cuts. And without that, I can't make an assumption that we will make those cuts, not having any idea what those would be. And also the county office wouldn't approve of our budget, having that level of cuts with no actual plan in place as to what exactly those cuts are. So version 2 of the multi-year projection shows we need to cut $1.9 million in ongoing expenses in year 2. So that's the 21-22 school year, and an additional $2.5 million in ongoing expenses in the 22-23 or year 3 school year. That's, that level of cuts is staggering for our agency, where our total budget's about $28 million. It's hard to even comprehend what that would mean. So as we developed this budget and more information came out from the legislature that they were proposing an improved budget that doesn't have this level of cuts, we just, we put this together because this is the statutory budget to put together, and we're hoping for some relief from our legislature, from the federal government. One of the key pieces of Governor Newsom's budget, as he proposed it in May revised, he had a term, I think it was trigger off, where if we were to receive additional funds, some of these cuts would be triggered off. If we received additional federal funds, some of the cuts would be triggered off, but he didn't have a good plan for what that meant. But the legislature's budget is a little bit rosier. The third version that you have in your packet would be if there were no cuts, if coronavirus had not happened, and there was not the massive economic downturn. And that shows that we are able to meet all of our obligations in all the years, but we do have some significant deficit spending in the third year, which shows that we already have an underlying deficit spending problem in our district that we need to address on top of the problems created by the budget cuts. So at the next board meeting, you're going to have a 45-day budget revision document, a multi-year projection, and a cash flow. I don't have all of the specifics of our new budget, the one that the state legislature and Governor Newsom have signed together. But I tried to estimate the best I could what I thought the impacts would be. So just note that these numbers on this slide are to be taken with a grain of salt. They are estimates, and you will see an actual adoptable estimate at the next board meeting. But I wanted you to have some sense of it because the level of cuts proposed in the May revise are hard to even understand. Whereas this version of the budget is a lot easier to comprehend because the level of cuts are much less. In this one, what you're going to see on the 45-day revision, I project we will only need to make about $1 million in cuts in year 3. So what that means is if you made adjustments in year one of, $300,000, that would be the end of that cut because it's every year you have that expense. Or if you made cuts of $500,000 or $600,000 in year two, that would cover it. This is a lot more within the realm of things we can actually accomplish. And I also have a new cash flow projection with the new budget. The new budget that's coming out from the legislature is a sort of harkens back to budgets of yesteryear before Governor Brown was the governor. And when Governor Brown was governor, he would say, "This is what we're doing in the budget." Bam, bam. Everybody in the legislature said, "Yes, thank you," and away it went. Before that, every legislator who was on the budget committee, who was on the dominant side, who got a vote, wanted to have their name on something, wanted to have their own little special flavor added to the budget, wanted their own special program added in, because Bob wants to have an art grant that he gets pushed through because that's his project, his priority. So this new budget has a lot of that same type of goodness. And I say goodness facetiously. So it has things in it like protections against layoff for certain classes of employees. It has restrictions on certain elements of distance learning and a wide variety of just, stuff that doesn't impact the budget per se, but are little pet things that people wanted in. So that part's really frustrating, seeing we're getting back to this singular legislator type of approach to the budget because it makes the budget outrageously complex. But that's where we are because with Governor Newsom, he doesn't say this is the budget and this is what it'll be. It's a negotiation, and when you negotiate with the legislature, well, they're going to put their name on a bunch of stuff. So I'll be bringing you all those details as they sort of unfold. There's still a lot that's uncertain. It just got passed yesterday night, or the night before, and so we're still just trying to get a handle on what exactly it all means. But bottom line, the budget you're going to see in the July board meeting is going to show that we still have a problem, but it's something that we'll be able to address with some strategic cuts. Probably in the second year, we'll need to make some cuts, and that will address the problem in the budget. But it will show, a cut to our budgets, because what this new budget proposes is instead of having the 10% cut, it just simply doesn't fund the COLA in the LCFF, which is the growth money in the LCFF. And that's sort of what we've been needing as a declining enrollment district to continue to get more money because expenses keep going up, not down. So our declining enrollment really starts to take hold when you're not funding the COLA. So my summary of the multi-year projection, it should serve as a loud alarm that we must take immediate action to correct our budget problem. Obviously, the budget problem is not the same as is it proposed to the May revision, but it's still a significant budget problem that's going to require significant, deep, and painful cuts. And you can see how we're hopeful that the state budget would prevent some of these cuts once adopted, and it has. And also, if the HEROES Act money comes in, it should put, or at least reduce the amount of deferrals that we're having. And that's all I have as far as my presentation. Were there any specific questions about the budget that you had right now?
Andrew, this is Pamela. I had a question. I was looking, what were the assumptions of the vacant positions, the positions that we would leave vacant?
Right now, the positions that I left vacant were a half-time counselor and the director of facilities maintenance and operations.
Thank you.
We are also looking at how we can, as we look at our declining enrollment, where we can just be careful in teacher assignments. We've already been able to work with some of our middle schools, and we haven't cut anybody, but we've cut open positions that we probably won't be filling, because we feel like with the declining enrollment, we can meet the needs of our students as far as class size and things of that nature. We've also frozen any open position right now that we may have, especially with COVID and some of those positions not absolutely being necessary based on our current model, that we've seen some savings in that, and we may be moving, keeping those in place for the foreseeable future, based on need and growth of our district, and depending on the programs that we offer in August. But I do want to reiterate to the board and to the other members of the community that are on this phone call, is that we are in better situations than most districts, because a lot of districts are seeing deficits even in the 2021 school year. We are not, because we've been very strategic, and I'd like to thank Andrew and his staff for putting us in a position that's, I think, that manageable moving forward. And so everybody in the state is in the same exact boat as far as funding and the lack thereof. And additionally, I just want to say that if we want to hope for that we can get back to normal as soon as possible, and if our economy can turn around faster than we anticipate, it will be very beneficial to not only our state, but to our funding. And we're also hoping that the feds will come in and help take care of some of those deferrals that we're looking at. So thank you, Andrew, and appreciate your time on this.
Sure. Are there other questions from the board?
Andrew, this is Bill LeGrand. I just have a couple questions. One is I'm assuming that the presentation that was provided tonight is based upon the May revise and is not based upon the legislation that came out last night.
Correct. There's one slide in there where I estimate that with the information that came out last night, we would only have to make $1 million cut in year 3 as sort of a spitball. I took the numbers and plugged them in, but wanted to get you some kind of numbers. The rest of the presentation and the budget packet that you have is completely based on the May revision. At the next board meeting, I'll have an update, a 45-day budget revision that will include the state legislature's adopted budget for you to approve.
The only other 2 comments that I have is the facilities director position that Mr. Galloway previously held, I think is a very critical position for the district, and we need to look at filling that sooner than later. I don't necessarily agree with not funding that position, because our facilities are not in the greatest shape to begin with. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying it's been a long time and they need a lot of regular maintenance and service. So I'd like to see us find a way to do that. The other thing that we may want to do, I realize that 3 years sounds like it's a long way off, and we get to make $1 million worth of cuts in 3 years. We may want to start doing that now. And the only way that I see that we're going to get $1 million worth of cuts is not going to be through not filling positions and attrition, because we have to have a certain number of people. But we may want to begin the conversation right now about employee concessions, which I know is a difficult conversation, but I'm not really sure how else we're going to come across that kind of money. And we may want to begin that conversation now and not wait for 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Other questions?
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, I think you might be up on for the next item, which is proposed ending fund balances.
Yes, that's me. So I'm not going to share a presentation on this one, but the state at one point one of the laws requires that we now show what we're going to use our ending fund balance on at every original budget. So this is just a certification showing where we have a proposed ending fund balance and what we're going to spend it on. So of the 2.6 million in the budget that we're proposed to have at the end of the budget year, 930,000 are going to go for our minimum reserve for economic uncertainties as required by law. And the rest is going to go to offset deficit spending caused by cuts. So that's and also $50 for revolving cash fund will be set aside. So that's really all there is to this. It's just to make sure that we're transparent about what our ending fund balance is and what it's used for.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions on that from the board? Great. At this time, I'd like to move to section number 7 on the agenda, the action section. If there are any public comments on action items, the board would like to extend an invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on items that are listed on the agenda. You may email your comments to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in your email. Comments pertaining to items listed in the agenda will be read into the record during this time. However, emails received without a sender's name will not be read. Spencer and Andrew, do we have any comments?
I see none. No.
I do not have any emails in there.
Great, thank you. And again, if something comes in, just let me know. I'd like to move on to the consent agenda, which is agenda item number 8. I would ask the board, I think what we'll do is we'll just go quickly around to see if anyone has a comment on any of the agenda items. Mark?
No comments from me.
No questions. Okay, Bill?
No comments or questions.
Thank you. Art?
No questions, no comments.
Thank you. Sandra?
Nothing more me, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I had one. There was the 77,000 for the drinking fountains. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There is a grant that pays for that, so
Okay.
we had to pay for the supplies, and that was one of those looked better on paper type of grants because it's been a real bear, and I know that's been one of the things that's been kind of chasing Jim around the district for the last year or so.
Okay. So the only comment that I have on that is that when we had the reopening committee meeting earlier in the day, we talked, unfortunately, about drinking fountains. And so, I mean, I don't know, are they installed, not installed? And maybe some of the things that we may have to turn the drinking fountains off. So I think it's just one of those unfortunate things. I don't have a solution. I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah, I think it's bad timing as far as the use of them, but this was something that was paid for fully from a grant.
Okay.
So it's something that, when we have the opportunity to get something like paid for drinking fountains, we're going to grab them up.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion from someone on the board to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Those in, Mark, aye or nay, please.
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
and Pamela Hamilton is also an aye. If the motion carries. If we could move on to item number 9 on the agenda, new business. The subject is adopting resolution 19-20-08, which is the resolution ordering the governing board member election. Did you want to speak to that, Spencer?
Sure. We have two things on the board this evening regarding resolutions. Both of them have to do with our coming November election, and that one has to do with the procedure in case there's a tie vote at the governing board election, and the other one has to do with resolution regarding cost of candidate statements. And this is something that we do every time that we have a candidate seat open in a November election. And in this particular year, we have multiple seats open. And so this is just a resolution to establish some guidelines as we move forward.
Okay, board members, any questions or concerns that you have about these? We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on each of the items. So item number A, can I get a motion to adopt the resolution 19-20-08, resolution ordering governing board member election?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. And we'll do a roll call vote. Art?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela is also an aye. The motion carries. May I get a motion to adopt resolution 19-20-09, resolution establishing procedure in case of tie vote by governing board election?
So moved.
May I get a second?
Second.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela is also an aye. The motion carries. Item number C, adopt resolution 19-20-10, resolution regarding cost of candidates' statements. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela is also an aye. The motion carries. We have item number D, approve the change to the December board meeting date. Spencer, would you like to speak to that? Looks like it's moving from Wednesday, December 2nd to Tuesday, December 15th is the proposal?
That is
That's-
correct.
That's a Tuesday?
And Kim, can you remind us why we're making that shift? Was that because of the CSBA meetings at that time?
No, it was more with the budget. I don't know if
Oh.
Andrew wants to talk about that. And plus, I'm going to be gone.
Well,
Yeah,
I do know that the new budget is going to require a new plan that the district has to create now that looks like it's not the LCAP plan that was originally due in December, but a new plan that the district has to do and a new budget update in December. So the later in December we are, the more likely it will be that we'll be able to get that report done accurately.
Thank you, John. That's I'm sorry that I totally spaced that one. Yes. So the LCAP is now due in December, which is totally new. And so that's changed, but there's also usually the first week in December is when we have our CSBA stuff as well. So
Great, thank you. We'll do this by a roll call. First of all, may I get a motion to approve the change of the December board meeting date?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And a roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
And Pamela is also a yes. The motion carries. We're going to move on to section number 10 of the agenda. Approve the employment contract for the Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction. Spencer, would you like to speak to this?
Yes.
And is Janet here? Hi, Janet.
Janet
Yes,
is
there she
in
is. Hello.
attendance. I know she was on the picture before. If she'd like to show herself again, I don't know. I don't want to be
Where did it
presumptuous,
go?
but I know that she was on before.
Oh, there we go.
There she is. I am recommending to the board that they approve the assistant superintendent contract for Janet Handley. I would like to give, before they vote, I'd like to give Janet a second or two, a minute or two, to kind of share with the board her years of experience and expertise that she brings to the district. Janet.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here and I appreciate the opportunity to talk and that you're considering my joining your school district. I really look forward to working with Oroville. I come with quite a few years of experience. I started out 10 years as a elementary and a junior high school teacher. I taught math at the secondary level. And then I moved into site administration and I did that for about 10 years. And probably the big highlight there was that I opened a brand new elementary school and we did everything from the ground up. We created new SEL programs, new academic programs. And then I moved into the district office, and at the district office level, I led the development and writing of the LCAP when it came out and the revisions thereafter, and had an opportunity to lead Common Core into the districts with the professional development and the curriculum alignment. And I've also helped to bring in PBIS and oversee SEL programs as well. So academic, testing, LCAP categorical, are a variety of the things I've done. And then the last couple of years, I had retired for a couple of years to help care for my mom. And then I picked up a couple of part-time jobs and I worked with the CSU system. And I work with student teachers and I oversee their student teaching assignments. And then I also coach principals in the K-8 level. And I've had some great opportunities to work with them and help them with their growth and development. And so that kind of brings me to here in Oroville of being able to bring that level of expertise.
Thank you, Janet. And at this time, I recommend to the board that we approve her contract. It's, as I've shared with you earlier, it's very, very similar, almost identical to the contract that Mr. Bohannon had. And send the time back over to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, concerns from the board? At this point, thank you, Sandra. At this point, can we get a motion to approve the employment contract for the Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, Janet Handley?
I make a motion that we approve the new employment contract for the Assistant Superintendent as presented in the agenda.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
And we'll do this by roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela Hamilton is also an aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
On board.
We'll move on to item number 11 on the agenda, Business and Finance, to adopt the original budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. I believe, Andrew?
Yeah, this is the budget I presented earlier, the public hearing. And I would ask the board to adopt the budget as written, knowing that a 45-day revision is coming to the next board meeting.
Thank you. Questions or concerns from the board? Great. May I get a motion to adopt the original budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year?
I make a motion, we adopt the budget as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. A roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela Hamilton is also an aye. The motion carries. We'll move on to item number B, approve the proposed ending fund balances. I believe this is what you presented earlier. Andrew, is that correct?
That's correct. And I would ask the board to adopt this resolution, please.
Great. Any further comments from the board? Great. May I get a motion to approve the proposed ending fund balances as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
And Pamela Hamilton also is an aye. The motion carries. Item number C, adopt the resolution 19-20-11, the resolution authorizing the ongoing board approved budget reduction based on the governor's May revision to the proposal for the 2020-2021 state budget. Andrew, anything further?
This is just another certification that goes with when you have a budget like ours that the board has to adopt.
Thank you. Board, any questions? Great. May I get a motion to adopt resolution 19-20-11?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Sandra?
Aye.
Sorry, roll call vote. Sandra is an aye.
Oh, you cut out.
Pamela, you cut off for a second. Can you say aye again?
Okay, can anybody hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Can hear you now.
Okay, so maybe no one can hear me.
We can hear you now, Pamela. Can you just say aye again? I think you said aye. If you could say aye, and then we'll go to the next agenda item.
Mm-mm.
Pamela, can you hear us? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Okay, if anyone can hear me, I can't hear anyone.
We can hear you.
So,
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Pamela, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Pamela.
I think we sound like a Verizon commercial here.
Pamela,
We can hear you.
Can anyone hear me now?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, can you hear us?
So Sandra, if you can hear me, you should take over at this point.
Okay, so I believe we were still doing a roll call vote on line item 11C, adopting the resolution 1920-11. I did vote aye. Bill?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
5-9.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. On to curriculum and instruction number 12. Letter A, adopt the COVID-19 operations written report.
So this is the report that the state required as a replacement for the LCAP this year. And it basically just asks us a few questions about what we did upon the closure of schools to support students. In our case, I worked with all the principals to see what we're doing at each site and then compile a report. Everybody was very similar. And this is what you see here as our report. The process is our board has to approve this, and then we have to submit it to the county. But unlike the LCAP, the county does not approve it. They just have to have it on hand.
I'm back. I can hear everybody. Yay.
Welcome back.
Any questions or concerns about the report? Pamela, would you like to go ahead and take over again?
Why don't you go ahead and finish this one? That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you, Sandra.
Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
And that's an aye for me. The motion carries.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll move on to item number B, approve single plans for student achievement for the 2020-2021 school year.
So unlike the state, who changed the LCAP process in response to the COVID pandemic and schools closures, the federal government was silent on the requirement for school site plans that must be approved once annually. If you recall, last year we started approving them this time of year to line up with the LCAP, so all of our plans went together. What we didn't have this year was data, because there's no new data for 1920 because of the school closures. There's no new assessment data or even really attendance data because we ended in March. So what we did this year is we went through and updated we kept the same goals. I went through and updated the funding that's attached to our actions within our goals to ensure that we are budgeting for all of our Title I money to be utilized within those plans. And then some school sites also added some actions in there with their funding, or maybe modified some actions in the realm of making sure we're focusing on our restorative justice and SEL as well within our school plans. So each school site has now had them approved by their school site councils, and we're ready for our annual approval for the school board to approve our school plans.
Thank you, Mark. Board, do you have any questions? At this point, I'd like can I get a motion to approve the single plans for student achievement? And there are plans for each of the schools, just so that we're very clear: Central Middle School, Ishii Hills Middle School, Oakdale Heights, Ophir Elementary, Stanford Avenue Elementary, and Wyandotte Academy. Can I get a motion to approve? Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we'll take a roll call vote. Sandra?
Aye.
Art? Art, you're on mute. Art's nodding his head.
There you go.
There
I
you
got
go.
it. Yes.
Yes,
Aye.
thank you. Bill
Yes.
and Mark?
Aye.
Thank you. And Pamela Hamilton is also an aye. The motion carries. We're on item number C here. Approve the contract with McGraw-Hill, which is Everyday Math. And John, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly. So it came to our attention a few weeks ago that when the district adopted Everyday Math 5 years ago, for whatever reason, it must maybe it was a funding thing, or I'm not sure, but we adopted the program with all the teachers' materials for 8 years, but we only purchased 5 years worth of the online, the digital resources and the consumable books that most of the teachers utilize in their classrooms for instruction. full disclosure, the kindergarten grade level probably does not use the consumables as much, but we don't get a reduction for not ordering them on the cost. So what this contract does is make sure we're providing the digital and consumable resources to the teachers for the remainder of the adoption for the next 3 years. I think it's really important that we keep the digital resources right now, especially if we find ourselves having to go to any kind of a blended or distance learning program again in the fall. Having those digital resources will certainly be helpful for parents, students, and teachers.
John, this McGraw-Hill, is this the Wonders program?
Yes, McGraw-Hill also has the Wonders program for our ELA program. This happens to be our math program. I did also want to add that the funding for this would be, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, would be restricted lottery funds that are designated for purchases like textbooks.
Great. For those of you on the board who haven't had a chance to actually utilize these materials, they're really terrific, at least at the 3rd grade level. So that's all I could comment on. Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. I don't know how my audio is coming through, but I'm just wondering, I don't see any bruises or scrapes on John's face. Are we fighting and negotiating, especially moving forward with all these contracts and all these expenses, right to the bare knuckle?
Yeah, we spent several virtual meetings and phone calls between Shannon and myself, trying to see if there was any way we could reduce this price. We also talked to all of our grade level leads at the elementary level and all of our principals to see if there was any way we could not buy the full package to save money. And it just doesn't work this year. It just these, I don't think, frankly, if we buy these in most grade levels, we would be meeting the Williams Act and we could get ourselves in trouble. And so I think it's best safe case scenario. And this is I'm trying every company I talk to, I'm trying to save as much money as I can. That's certainly one thing Spencer has taught me in my time in Oroville.
Well, I hope Janet does it just as well moving forward. Thank you, John. But if we're going to be asking our staff for compensation adjustments downward or even concessions, and I think the vendors should take a hit as well. Most of the vendors I'm working with for the last couple of years are offering free shipping. I'm seeing 5%, thousands and thousands of dollars here. And maybe we couldn't get around it on this one, but I hope we fight in the future.
I'm sure Janet will take that to heart.
And Mark, when it comes to vendors like that, because these are million dollar entities, I will just tell you, when John says that I've kind of taught him how to work with vendors, I nickel and dime them until they
almost two more.
Until they want to hang up on me.
2 more votes.
It's important that that we do that, and we'll continue to do that.
10 minutes, 15 minutes. We'll see
Thank
your dad.
you.
Careful, Bill.
Art, your mic's on. I just want to make sure that we do it with every vendor. It doesn't matter if they're a multi-billion dollar company. Maybe there's competition. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed, and duly noted.
Mark, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just finishing up a note here. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board on this item? May I get a motion to approve the contract with McGraw-Hill for everyday math?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Sandra?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Thank you. Bill?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Pamela Hamilton's also an aye. The motion carries. We're on item number D here, adopt middle school science curriculum. And John, is there any comments that you have on that, please?
So I emailed you this morning a document that Kathy McCarthy put together, and Kathy has dutifully sat through the whole meeting to get to this item. So I'm so I'm going to let Kathy speak to our process and how we got where we are.
Okay. Kathy? Thank you.
Sorry, I had to undo that. Thank you. Yes, so we started out with John, Brad Liapis, and myself going to the NGSS time meeting in Tama County, Office of Education, last year in May, I believe. So that's where I have my first column here. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you. And you already have it. There you go. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
can.
Yes, we can see it.
So that's where I came up with this left-hand column that says criteria. This was the criteria that the state and all the districts are using to grade curricula to see which ones are the best for meeting the standards that California has. Okay, so that's what we used to narrow down our choice of curriculum that we wanted you to hopefully adopt. We started out with roughly 12. We got it down to 6, and then we got it down to 3, and then we finally got it down to these 2, and then to the 1. And we picked TCI because it allowed students to learn a phenomena, so have an everyday question or issue that they see, and use the knowledge during the units to understand how that phenomena works and to be able to use it in their own words. So that's where number 1 is. It's also, it gives them the question, the entire lesson plan all the way through the unit. And some lessons are 8 lessons long. Some of them are for their different age. They always go back to that original question that they asked, that phenomena, to students, so that they can adjust their answers and their thinking as they learn. It gives you a very logical progression so that you're building on your previous knowledge the whole time, which is the logical sequence. It was the best one having that. It kept on going back to the question. It gave it a sequence. I'm trying to go fast because I know it's a long time. It was the best one at having students figure things out because it used so many different types of resources, like little YouTube videos to show a concept in multiple ways, or a game or a virtual simulation, a lot of virtual tools. It also comes with a student interactive notebook that they can write in right there on their Chromebook. So it can be in the classroom. It can actually be at home at the same time. And they can go back and forth very easily. It gives you the 3 dimensions. So California says that you need to have 3 dimensions. You need to be able to have the expectation, what you want them to learn. How does it go across different learning tools? How they use science and STEM and engineering practices during the lesson, and then how they do an assessment. And the assessment tool of TCA is actually probably the best because they don't just go with a standard test like the other curricula I looked at. They actually have them, and some of them have to build something, to create something, to design something. And this one, they had to make a commercial to show how digital waves worked, for my example. So it's not just, can you write down on a test and answer the questions? It's, do you really understand what we've spent this time teaching you? And can you use it in your everyday life? And that's why we picked this one over all the rest. And the fact that we can use it in the classroom and in digital learning.
So I don't think I did a very good job of introducing Kathy, but Kathy is our science teacher at Central Middle School, and she also was our co-grade level facilitator this year. As this was the first year as a district, we introduced grade level facilitators for science at the middle school level. And we were able to utilize, primarily utilize this year, those meetings to review curriculum. We invited some parents to look at the curriculum and at those grade level meetings. And we were fortunate that within our Butte County Office of Education contract, we got support from BCOE's Ryan Van Rokel, who helped facilitate this process for us, and I think help us kind of walk through it together so we could do it in a way that worked for our district, and I think was great. We did get to a point where we were just starting the pilot, I think, about the time schools closed. We might have got a little bit of piloting done before the schools closed. And so some of the piloting was done actually in a distance learning module, I think. And it was pretty clear that the entire team, both the 7th and 8th grade science teachers and the 6th graders that were involved in this process would prefer to go with this TCI curriculum. I think it will benefit us as a district to have a curriculum that not only meets the current standards, which we don't really currently have, at least not in the adopted format. I know Kathy has worked really hard to try to make sure that what we're teaching is actually to the new, we shouldn't really even call them new standards anymore because they're like 6 years old. But I think we went through a really strong process and we really looked at all the curriculums. We took all the ones when Kathy says we got down to 6, we basically looked at what was ranked by different review teams around the state from the county offices. And that helped us make that decision. And I think it was a real strong process. And I think adopting these materials will really support science teachers and students, whether we are back in a traditional classroom or we find ourselves in some sort of blended or traditional model, depending on orders from the state or county health department.
I will also like to share that it's been several years since our district has adopted anything formal with a science adoption, and it's been several years since the state has.
I think you froze, Spencer.
Are we gonna get him back?
Oh,
there he is.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Sorry.
Yeah, whatever you just said, we didn't hear though.
Okay. I was just going to say that it's been a long time coming since our district has approved new science curriculum. It's been a long time coming. The district has approved new science standards, and this new curriculum aligns with that. Yes, it does come with a price tag, but I have worked with John and Andrew and looked at our budget, and the money that we use for curriculum adoption is restricted money, restricted lottery money that's there, and it's there for the purpose of adopting new curriculum. And so we'd like to thank Kathy for not only being with us tonight and taking the time to sit through a board meeting, but also all her due diligence in making sure that we have chosen a good, strong curriculum for our students.
Okay, apparently we have lost Pam again, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'd like to reiterate Spencer's comments by thanking Ms. McCarthy for joining us. I did have a concern with the fact that we weren't going to see her and we hadn't had the opportunity to look over the curriculum as in past practice, but I appreciate and I value your input and Mr. Bohannon's input. So thank you very much for both of your expert time and energy in this process. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and call for a motion to approve the science curriculum as illustrated in the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mark? Mark, do we have a roll call vote from you?
I'm back. I could hear her again.
Bill?
Yes.
Art?
Aye.
Pam?
I'm assuming we are voting on the science curriculum? Yes, I am a yes. Yes, aye.
And I also affirm by saying yes, the motion approves. Thank you very much, everyone. I think that concludes our agenda for tonight. I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 6:22 this evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Congratulations, Janet. We will see you soon. So
Thank you.
thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Hey, Kim Felder, are you still there?
Thank you.
I've got a couple of things to sign. Would you like me to sign them and have somebody drop them off with you tomorrow? Or do you want to send them to me? I'll sign them in PDF and back to you. How do you want to work that?
Because the resolutions, I think I have to add some things to them.
Okay.
So you do that and I'll send them to you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers. Bye now.